There are many extraordinary places on our planet, but few people know that in one of the most extreme regions on Earth, there is a place where water is more valuable than gold, a region where women do not bathe, men can have several wives, and they even offered them to visitors as a sign of hospitality. In this new video from Uncensored World, we will discover Jordan, one of the most extreme and fascinating countries on Earth. The country of the legendary Bedouins, men and women of the desert, famous for their beauty, for cooking underground in sand and fire ovens, building their homes with goat wool, and keeping alive traditions as extreme as the legendary hospitality of the desert, a tradition so powerful that it would suffice to utter a sacred word for a Bedouin to protect you with his life. A corner with unique curiosities, such as containing the lowest point on the planet, a sea where it is impossible to sink, and where some believe the ancient ruins of Sodom and Gomorrah could be hidden. Ancient cities carved directly into the stone, and landscapes so imposing that many call them the Manhattan of the desert, the natural setting for films such as The Martian or Dune. A nation where there are goats with tiny ears, people who still live in caves, and the river where, according to tradition, Jesus Christ was baptized. Pay attention, and don't miss this video. You'll soon discover whether or not you could accept a form of hospitality unique in the world in one of the safest countries in the Middle East. Let's get started. Jordan, officially known as the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, is a country located in the heart of the Middle East, where the past and present intertwine in an almost impossible balance. Its capital is Amman, a city that stretches across 7 hills and pulsates with a fascinating mix of ancient history and Arab modernity. Here, bustling cafes, Roman ruins, and glass skyscrapers coexist on the same horizon, reflecting the contrast that defines this country. Unlike other places in the region, Jordan is neither vast nor overpopulated. With an area similar to that of Portugal and a population of just over 10 million, the country maintains a human scale that allows you to travel from north to south in a few hours. But in this country, the landscape changes radically with every kilometer, as in very few others, from the green of the Jordan Valley to the gold of the endless deserts in the south. Jordan borders Syria to the north, Iraq to the east, Saudi Arabia to the south, and Israel and Palestine to the west. At first glance, it might seem like a country surrounded by tension, but against all odds, it has managed to remain calm. While its neighbors have experienced decades of conflict, Jordan has established itself as one of the safest and most stable countries in the entire Middle East. This peace, the result of a political and social balance that is rare in the region, has earned Jordan the nickname the Switzerland of the Middle East. Here, religious differences coexist without conflict. Visitors are greeted with sincere smiles, and hospitality is not just a tradition. It is an unwritten law that every Jordanian family takes very seriously. Hospitality is so deeply ingrained in Jordan that it often surprises travelers. The Bedouins of the desert, for example, consider guests to be a gift from God, so it is not uncommon for a stranger to be invited to sit down, drink sweet tea, share warm bread, or even stay the night without many questions asked, sometimes even being offered their own beds. We will soon delve into the secrets of this extreme hospitality, the traditions of the Bedouins, and the unwritten law that governs the desert. But first we need to learn more about the present and past reality of this country. As you will see, these customs are as surprising as they are ancient, since here offering shelter, food, or protection to a stranger is not a simple act of kindness, but a sacred duty. In some desert villages, if a traveler passes by a house, the family may come out to the door and even insist that they come in, if only for tea, dates, or a simple greeting. Even in cities, the kindness is surprising. Taxi drivers who refuse tips because you are already a guest, vendors who give away a small sweet so you remember Jordan, or families who invite travelers to weddings, celebrations, or traditional festivals as if they were part of the community. This way of treating visitors has a name that Jordanians repeat with pride, karam, which means generosity. For them, hospitality is an essential part of their identity. That's why many travelers agree that you may come to Jordan for its landscapes, but you return for its people. With all this in mind, tourism in Jordan is one of its main sources of pride. Travelers from all over the world are drawn to its ancient history, its safety, and the friendliness of its people. The name Jordan comes from the legendary Jordan River, a waterway that, although short in length, has marked the spiritual soul of millions of people for centuries. Its name derives from the Hebrew Yarden, which means to descend, a term that describes not only the river's journey from the northern mountains to the desert, but also the symbolic journey of the spirit toward purification and faith. The Jordan River originates in the foothills of Mount Hermon in the north, where small streams converge, winding their way through fertile valleys and stone canyons. From there, it winds its way down through the historic Jordan Valley until it flows into the Dead Sea, after traveling just over 300 kilometers. But beyond its geography, the river has a unique spiritual significance. According to the Gospels, it was here, on a riverbank near the present-day town of Bethany, that Jesus of Nazareth was baptized by John the Baptist. The exact location, known as Al-Magtas, which in Arabic means place of baptism, is on the Jordanian bank of the river, a few kilometers east of Jericho. Since ancient times, pilgrims from all over the world have traveled here to immerse themselves in the same waters where, according to tradition, Jesus' ministry began. This act, described in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, symbolizes spiritual renewal and the beginning of a new era of faith. Local legends say that when John the Baptist immersed Jesus in the river, the waters stopped for a moment, as if recognizing the divine presence. Other accounts claim that at that moment, a bright light descended from the sky and a white dove appeared above the waters, representing the Holy Spirit. Today, the churches and chapels surrounding the site commemorate this event, and every year thousands of believers come to relive the baptism ceremony in this setting, where silence and history come together, as in very few other places. The Jordan River flows south and empties into the Dead Sea, which is recognized as the lowest point on the Earth's surface. Located more than 400 meters below sea level, this place, known in Arabic as Al-Bahr al-Mayyit, is a salt lake with no natural outlet, which means that the water that arrives from the river slowly evaporates under the intense desert sun, leaving behind a concentration of minerals and salt that is unique in the world. The Dead Sea was formed millions of years ago, when tectonic movements separated the Arabian plate from the African plate, creating a deep depression that eventually filled with water. Over the centuries, due to the lack of currents and extremely high temperatures, the evaporation process outpaced the renewal process, concentrating salts and minerals to levels that seem impossible today. Its waters contain almost 10 times more salt than the ocean, making it literally impossible to sink in them. Here, even those who cannot swim float effortlessly, and it is not uncommon to see visitors reading the newspaper while resting on the surface, as if the sea were holding them with an invisible hand. On its shores, the landscape looks like something from another planet, with salt crystals covering the rocks as if they were ice sculptures, and a dense, mineral-laden air that creates a silvery glow on the horizon. Scientists say this optical phenomenon is due to the concentration of suspended particles, which filter the sunlight and give the environment an almost supernatural appearance. In addition to its natural rarity, the Dead Sea has healing properties that have made it a health destination since biblical times. Its dark mud is rich in magnesium, sodium, and potassium, minerals that revitalize the skin, and its dense, oxygen-rich atmosphere alleviates respiratory ailments. That is why, from the time of Herod the Great to the present day, travelers and kings have flocked to these waters in search of healing and rest. Few know that beneath the calm waters of this sea lies one of the oldest and most enigmatic mysteries in the world, that of Sodom and Gomorrah, the cursed cities mentioned in the Bible. According to the account in Genesis, Sodom and Gomorrah were two prosperous cities located in the fertile Jordan Valley, cities that would be destroyed by fire and brimstone, which, according to tradition, God sent down from heaven as punishment for the corruption and moral disorder of their inhabitants. Lot, Abraham's nephew, was one of the few who managed to escape, along with his family, after receiving the divine warning to flee on the condition that they did not look back. However, his wife disobeyed that warning, and so the story goes that when she looked back at the burning cities, she was turned into a pillar of salt. The most curious thing about this legend is that, at the southern end of the Dead Sea, there is a real geological formation that locals call Lot's wife. A pillar of salt, several meters high, sculpted by the desert winds, which has become a symbol of that ancient legend. The area where, according to biblical texts, Sodom and Gomorrah would have existed corresponds to what is now known as the Lysan area, a peninsula that divides the Dead Sea and has one of the most unique geological structures on the planet. There you can see thick layers of salt, sulfur, and crystallized minerals, the result of thousands of years of evaporation and tectonic activity. Some researchers believe that these formations could be related to the biblical description of the fire and brimstone that destroyed the cities. Beyond faith, science also finds this region fascinating. Geologists have discovered traces of ancient earthquakes and natural gas and oil explosions that could have caused massive fires in ancient times, possible realities that may have fueled this legend. As you can see, the Jordanian landscape is a true masterpiece of nature and human history. But beyond the Dead Sea, surrounded by mountains of red sand, endless gorges and impossible rock formations, lies Wadi Rum, a place so impressive that many know it as the Valley of the Moon or the Manhattan of the Desert, because of the giant stone towers that rise toward the sky as if they were the natural buildings of a city sculpted by wind and time. The nickname Manhattan of the Desert comes from the unmistakable silhouette of its vertical mountains, which emerge from the sandy ground like the skyscrapers of a large metropolis. These formations, carved over millions of years by erosion, rise in shades of red, orange, and gold that change color with the movement of the sun. In fact, at sunrise and sunset, the landscape of Wadi Rum seems to light up as shadows and light transform the desert into an ocean of fire, a sight that has fascinated travelers, explorers, and filmmakers from around the world. Because of its extraordinary nature, more typical of another planet than of Earth, Wadi Rum has been the setting for legendary films such as Lawrence of Arabia, The Martian, Dune, and Star Wars. Among its sands still live the descendants of the Bedouin tribes, who for centuries roamed these territories guided by the stars, surviving on what the desert gave them and taking care of their greatest treasure, water, a resource that for many in this region is worth more than gold itself, as you will soon discover. For all these reasons, the Wadi Rum Desert is considered by many to be one of the most magical places on the planet. This place is recognized as one of the few regions on the planet with a dark sky, which means that there is almost no light pollution. That is why here, when night falls, the sky lights up with more than 7,000 stars visible to the naked eye, a sight that leaves anyone breathless. This reality probably has something to do with the fact that the ancients knew this place as the Celestial Valley, a place where it was believed that angels descended from heaven to speak with men. When you see its red stone mountains at sunset, bathed in a golden light that seems to come from another world, and discover its light under a completely starry sky, you understand why. In this place there is no noise, no electricity, only silence, sand, and many stars. It is literally one of the cleanest skies on Earth. Thinking of those angels descending from the sky, we invite you to look down for a moment and give us a big like and subscribe to Uncensored World. As you can see, here we discover the wonders of the planet like nowhere else. Thank you for joining us. This unique beauty, both in its landscapes and its people, is deeply linked to the origins of Jordan. Throughout history, this territory has been home to and a crossroads for great civilizations. The Nabateans, Romans, Byzantines, and Arabs left their mark on its land and culture. Petra, Jerash, and Madaba are the best examples of this ancient legacy that still lives on among the stones. Of all these wonders, Petra is surely the most impressive. Known as the Pink City of the Desert, it is considered by many to be the jewel of Jordan and one of the most beautiful cities on the planet. The city is hidden among red sandstone mountains and is accessible only through a narrow gorge called the Seek. For all these reasons, Petra seems to emerge from another time, as if it had been sculpted by the gods of the desert themselves. Petra was built by the Nabateans, a nomadic Arab people who knew how to turn sand into power. Between the 4th century BC and the 2nd century AD, they built their capital directly on the rock, carving temples, tombs, and monumental facades into the sandstone walls. Their most famous work is the Treasury, Al-Khazneh, Petra's most iconic monument and one of the architectural wonders of the ancient world. Carved directly into the pink rock of the gorge, this imposing temple tomb stands almost 40 meters high and has a facade reminiscent of Hellenic palaces, with Corinthian columns and sculptures that seem to defy time. It was carved by hand from top to bottom, directly into the mountain, using bronze tools and sand, a feat that still baffles archaeologists. Although its exact function remains a mystery, most experts agree that it was built as a Nabatean royal tomb, probably for King Aretas IV, more than 2,000 years ago. Over time, local legends gave it its current name, Al-Khazneh, the Treasury, because it was believed that the gold of an Egyptian pharaoh was hidden in its upper urn. The name Petra makes as much sense as the history it holds within its stones. Its meaning, rock in Greek, literally reflects its essence. An entire city carved into the mountain, sculpted by the Nabateans more than 2,000 years ago. But it also embodies another kind of strength, that of its women. The women of Petra were known not only for their beauty, but also for their character and power. At a time when most civilizations severely limited the role of women, the Nabatean women enjoyed rights that still surprise historians today. They could own land, run businesses, sign contracts, and inherit property on an equal footing with men, something very few women in the ancient world could do. While women in Rome or Greece lived under male authority, in Petra the Nabatean women signed commercial agreements, participated in religious ceremonies, and even financed temples and public works. Inscriptions with the names of women merchants, priestesses, and even architects have been found in the temples and tombs of Petra, something unthinkable in almost any other place in the ancient world. It is said that some managed caravans of incense and spices that crossed the desert from Arabia to the Mediterranean, a trade that made Petra a center of wealth and power. Most surprising is that the Nabateans not only recognized the authority of their women in the economy, but also in social life. The queens and wives of rulers were engraved alongside them on coins, a symbol of respect and status. There are even accounts that claim that some noble women participated in the decisions of the royal council, something that not even Rome or Greece allowed. Perhaps that is why many ancient travelers described Nabatean women as steely-eyed and decisive. Their elegance was not ostentatious, but rather the serenity with which they walked among the pink walls of Petra, a city that, like them, was carved in stone but made to withstand the passage of time. For those who visit its ruins today, imagining those powerful women in a world dominated by men makes Petra not only an archaeological gem, but also an eternal symbol of female strength and freedom. One of the most fascinating curiosities of Petra is its ingenious water system. As in the midst of this scorching and deadly desert, the Nabateans built canals, cisterns, and dams capable of collecting and storing rain, ensuring a year-round supply. This mastery of water made Petra a key point on the trade routes between Arabia, Egypt, and Syria, where spices, incense, and silk were exchanged. Over time, Petra was abandoned and forgotten, until in the 19th century, a Swiss explorer, disguised as a Bedouin, rediscovered it for the world. Today, it is a World Heritage Site and one of the 7 wonders of the modern world. At sunset, when the sun paints the mountains red and gold, Petra does not look like a city. but a dream carved into the stone itself. Over the centuries, Jordan has become a predominantly Muslim country, where religion naturally influences everyday life. One of the realities that most surprises travelers is that in Jordan, polygamy is still permitted by law, although in practice few people practice it. This custom comes from Islamic tradition and is protected by Sharia, Islamic law, which allows a man to have up to 4 wives as long as he is able to support them all equally, both financially and in terms of treatment and care. However, in modern Jordan, this practice is becoming less common, especially in large cities, where the cost of living and Western influence mean that most men have only 1 wife. In addition, current legislation requires the legal consent of the first wife before entering into a new marriage, which has further reduced the number of cases. In some rural areas, the dowry, or mahr, is still celebrated, an amount that the groom gives to the bride's family as a sign of commitment and responsibility. But more than a payment, it is now interpreted as a symbolic way of ensuring the woman's well-being. In some Bedouin villages, this dowry can be money, jewelry, livestock, or even a complete caravan, depending on the agreement between the families. But beyond norms and customs, Jordanian society is defined by its balance between tradition and modernity. In large cities such as Amman, life moves at the pace of technology and globalization, but in desert villages, ancestral identity remains as alive as it was centuries ago. That is why this country contains surprising realities that have a lot to do, as we said, with the desert and with its most enigmatic society, that of the Bedouins. They are the true children of the wind and sand, guardians of a way of life that has stood the test of time. Their name comes from the Arabic Badawi, which means desert dweller, and their culture is closely linked to survival, family, and hospitality. The Bedouins are known for their serene beauty and noble bearing, a legacy of generations who have learned to live in one of the harshest environments on the planet. Men and women of the desert who retain distinctive features, suntanned skin, deep gazes, and strong bodies, shaped by a life of effort and endurance. In some regions, especially in southern Jordan, you can find Bedouins with surprisingly light eyes, green or blue, a rare trait in the Middle East that is attributed to ancient genetic mixing with Mediterranean and North African peoples, the result of trade and caravan routes that crossed the desert centuries ago. Their clothing is as practical as it is symbolic. Men usually wear a light, loose-fitting white tunic called a dish dasha or thobe, which reflects the sun and allows air to circulate, keeping the body cool during the day. On their heads they wear the keffiyeh, the traditional cotton scarf that protects them from the wind, sand, and heat. In Jordan, it is usually red and white, colors that represent national identity and Hashemite heritage. Bedouin women, for their part, wear long, dark dresses embroidered with brightly colored threads, a tradition that has been passed down from mothers to daughters for centuries. Black absorbs heat during the day and retains temperature during cold desert nights, while the embroidery, red, green, or gold, symbolizes tribes, regions, or civil statuses. On special occasions, they adorn their clothes with silver jewelry and partially cover their faces with a thin veil that reveals only their eyes, considered the purest reflection of Bedouin beauty. In the desert, where the body must withstand heat during the day and cold at night, every garment has a purpose. Loose tunics allow air to circulate and sweat to evaporate, keeping the skin cool even under the scorching sun. For this reason, Bedouins traditionally did not wear underwear, as any tight-fitting garment would retain heat and cause discomfort during long days on horseback or walking on the sand. Far from being an eccentricity, this custom is the result of the practical wisdom of centuries of nomadic life. Their light, flowing clothing is part of a natural system of adaptation. It protects from the sun, prevents dehydration, and allows the body to breathe. Even the way they tie their scarves or adjust their belts strikes a balance between aesthetics, comfort, and survival. In modern camps, many Bedouins have adopted Western underwear or finer fabrics. But in deep desert communities, the traditional style is still preserved. There, elegance is not measured by fashion, but by harmony with the environment. Those who dress well are those who manage to coexist with the desert without challenging it. A desert where water is worth more than gold, to the point that many Bedouins have learned to minimize its use, as it is the most desired and also scarce commodity here. Many Bedouin men and women did not bathe frequently, and they still do not do so as we do. Not out of carelessness, but because every drop could mean the difference between life and death. To maintain hygiene, they prefer to use fine sand and natural oils that clean and protect the skin, an ancient custom that demonstrates the incredible human adaptation to the harshest environments on the planet, a life guided by ancient codes. One of these is the tradition of the dowry. When a man wishes to marry, he must offer financial or material compensation to the woman's family as a sign of his ability to support a household. In the most traditional communities, marriage is an agreement between families, and the wedding is celebrated with large feasts where music and Arabic coffee are never lacking. Another code that is even more striking is an unwritten law known as desert hospitality. In the past, and even today in some very remote Bedouin villages, this sacred hospitality reached levels that may seem difficult to understand in Western eyes. Not only was food and shelter offered, but the traveler was given the best place in the tent, even the host's own bed, as a sign of the respect and absolute trust that the desert demands among those who inhabit it. In certain cases, especially in ancient times, the stranger could sleep alongside the host's spouse or family, even with their own wife, as closeness was a symbol of protection and brotherhood, not intimacy. The visitor became part of the household during their stay. They ate with them, rested with them, and received the same treatment as any other member of the family. Although today most Bedouins live in modern villages or work in tourism, this ancient custom lives on in the spirit of the desert. In many Jordanian homes, it is still considered an offense to leave a visitor without food or shelter. Because in the desert, they say, rejecting a guest is not only rude, it is tempting fate. Much of this has a very deep meaning hidden under an almost mystical word in the heart of the desert, dakhil. Among the Bedouins, this word is not just a term, it is a sacred pact. It means, I am your guest, or I seek your protection, and whoever utters it is under the protection of the listener. From that moment on, the host has a moral and spiritual obligation to offer shelter, food, and defense, even at the cost of their own life. This unwritten law was born in the desert itself, an environment where survival depends as much on courage as it does on compassion. In a place where the sun can kill and the wind can erase a man's footprints in minutes, offering hospitality is offering salvation. That is why Bedouin hospitality is so legendary. It is not a matter of courtesy, but of honor. Stories are still told of lost travelers who, upon uttering the word dakhil, were welcomed, fed, and protected by families who did not even know their names. In the desert, they say, a single word is enough to turn a stranger into a brother. With this in mind, we would like to ask you, would you accept this form of Bedouin hospitality by sleeping in the same bed as a Bedouin couple or family? Could you be as hospitable as they are and share yours? Pause the video and leave us your comment. You know that doing so is the best way to support us, and it will be very fun and interesting to read your comments. So, thank you. Although over time some of these customs have adapted and are changing, the essence remains alive in Jordan, as here the visitor is sacred. This has a lot to do with the fact that life in the desert teaches the hardest lessons nature has to offer. The Bedouins have learned to live with scarcity, to read the silences of the wind, and to interpret the invisible signs of the landscape. They are true masters of survival. They know how to navigate by the stars, predict sandstorms by observing the movement of clouds, and distinguish the sound of footsteps on dry or wet sand, a skill that can mean the difference between life and death. In extreme conditions, where temperatures can exceed 50 degrees during the day and drop below zero at night, the Bedouins have had to resort to methods that border on the incredible. There are accounts from travelers and nomads who tell how, On deadly cold nights, some Bedouins slept inside the body of a dead camel to conserve body heat. And in situations of hunger or absolute isolation, they would drink small amounts of blood from their animals, not as an act of cruelty, but as a way to stay alive until they found shelter or an oasis. But if anything truly distinguishes these communities, it is their ancestral wisdom in finding water in an environment where it seems to be non-existent. The Bedouins know how to identify the places where it is hidden under the sand. They observe the flight of certain birds at dawn, analyze the type of vegetation that grows in specific areas, and even recognize the smell of damp earth when the wind blows in a certain direction. Many claim that they can smell water from several miles away. One of the most fascinating curiosities is that, in the middle of the desert, the Bedouins can locate a dry well abandoned for centuries and know if the water will return with the rains, thanks to specific cracks or colors in the rock. This knowledge, passed down from generation to generation, is not taught in books or schools, but on long journeys under the sun and endless desert nights. For them, survival is not a matter of strength, but of respect for the environment, and an almost spiritual connection to the land where they were born. This is how the Bedouins represent the very spirit of Jordan, an example of pride, resilience, and humanity. Their way of life is reflected not only in their customs, but also in the way they build their homes, adapted to one of the harshest environments on the planet. For centuries, the Bedouins have built their homes with goat wool. To construct them, the women weave long strips of black and brown wool on hand looms, which they then sew together to form large panels. When wet with rain, these fabrics swell and become waterproof, protecting the interior from sandstorms and the cold at night. During the day, however, they allow air to circulate, creating a kind of natural air conditioning that keeps the interior cool despite the scorching heat. These structures, known as Beit al-Sha'ar, literally the house of hair, are removable and lightweight, allowing families to move according to the seasons or the availability of water and pasture. Inside, the division of space also obeys a deep cultural code. One area for men and visitors, another for women and children, and a sacred corner where coffee, a symbol of hospitality and respect, is kept. Although modern life has changed many things, there are still Bedouin communities that live in a traditional way, especially in southern regions, near Wadi Rum or in the Al-Mafraq Desert. Some even live in caves carved into the rock, a custom inherited from ancient times, when tribes sought refuge in the mountains to protect themselves from the desert wind or attacks from other tribes. These caves, cool in summer and warm in winter, remain an effective refuge from extreme weather. Another of the most fascinating and ancient customs of the Bedouins is their way of cooking underground, a technique as simple as it is ingenious that has allowed them to survive for centuries in an environment without kitchens, abundant firewood, or modern utensils. This method, known as zarb, consists of digging a hole in the sand where burning embers of wood or charcoal are placed. A metal grill or a structure made of sticks is placed on top of the embers, on which meat, vegetables, and bread seasoned with local spices are placed. Everything is then carefully covered with sand or earth and left to cook slowly for hours, preserving the juices and aromas of each ingredient. This ancient tradition has also given rise to one of Jordan's most emblematic dishes, mansaf, considered the national dish. In many regions, it is still prepared in the Bedouin style, placing meat, rice, and vegetables in metal trays and leaving them to cook underground with the heat of the embers. The result is a smoky and tender flavor, a blend of the simplicity of the desert and the heritage of a people who learned to transform sand into cuisine. The result is surprising. In these pit kitchens, food is cooked with the constant heat trapped underground, preserving its juiciness and a unique smoky aroma. Traditionally, zarb is prepared for celebrations or when an important guest is received, because it represents a gesture of respect and generosity. When it is time to unearth the food, the Bedouins do so carefully, removing the sand with their hands or dry branches, releasing a cloud of hot steam and the unmistakable smell of meat and freshly baked bread. Times are changing to the point that today, many Bedouins combine their ancient traditions with modern life, using cell phones and all-terrain vehicles, but continuing to set up wool tents, raise camels, and offer hospitality to visitors as they have done for centuries. As you leave the big cities behind and head into rural areas, the pace of life changes completely. There, traditions continue to shape everyday life, reminding us that Jordan is home to two distinct souls, one of progress and one of ancestral heritage. Jordanian women are perhaps the best reflection of this duality. In Amman and other cities, many freely choose how to dress. Some retain traditional attire, with light fabrics and colors that are part of their cultural identity. Others prefer a more modern style, inspired by Western fashion. More and more women are studying, working, and holding important positions. Today, they can be found working as doctors, teachers, businesswomen, or engineers, something that was unthinkable just a few decades ago. Jordan is moving forward, but without losing its roots or the value it places on family and mutual respect. Even so, customs remain conservative in many places. Public displays of affection are rare, and discretion is considered a form of elegance and respect. In this country, gestures speak louder than words, and modesty is a quality that is valued in both men and women. Few people know this, but Jordan is also one of the youngest countries on the planet. The average age is around 23, almost half the European average. This youth, combined with heavy investment in education, has made the country one of the most promising in the Arab world. Its literacy rate exceeds 98%, one of the highest in the Middle East. Both men and women have equal access to education, which is considered a key tool for national development. Amman, its capital, has become a true center of knowledge and culture. It is home to some of the most renowned universities in the Arab world, such as the University of Jordan, the Jordan University of Science and Technology, and Yarmouk University, which attract thousands of foreign students every year, especially from neighboring countries such as Iraq, Syria, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. Young people also come from Europe, Asia, and America, interested in learning Arabic or studying archaeology, history, or international relations. This university environment has made Amman a diverse and open city, where students, diplomats, humanitarian workers, and refugees live side by side. In fact, Jordan is one of the countries that hosts the most refugees in proportion to its population, which has contributed to creating a unique human mosaic. In its streets, you can hear dozens of different accents and languages, from classical Arabic to English, French, and even Spanish, thanks to tourism and the international community working in the country. This mix of youth, education, and cultural diversity makes Jordan a country with a modern identity, but one that is deeply proud of its past, a place where tradition does not oppose change, but accompanies it with the serenity of the desert and the wisdom of the centuries. If you've come this far, you're probably interested in knowing how to visit Jordan, whether it's a safe country, and how much it costs to enjoy it. The answer will surprise you. Jordan is one of the safest countries in the Middle East. Despite its location among nations in conflict, its political stability, respect for the law, and the hospitality of its people make traveling there peaceful and enjoyable. Travelers can walk its streets, drive through the desert, or visit Petra at night without fear, as long as they respect the local culture. Here, safety is as important as tradition. A good way to save time and money is to get the Jordan Pass, an official document that includes admission to more than 40 tourist sites, including Petra, and eliminates the cost of a visa if you stay at least 3 nights. If you don't buy it, the visa costs about $60, and a one-day ticket to Petra is around $70. That's why the Jordan Pass is usually the most practical and economical option. Getting to Jordan is easy. There are direct flights and flights with one stopover to Amman, the capital, from America and Europe. From cities such as New York or Madrid, a round-trip flight costs an average of around $600 to $700, although cheaper deals can be found in the low season. Queen Alia International Airport is located about 30 kilometers from the center of Amman and is served by public transportation and official taxis. Getting around the country is also easy. The roads are in good condition, and renting a car costs around $40 per day, making it one of the best ways to visit places such as the Dead Sea, Petra, or Wadi Rum. There are also buses and minibuses between the main cities, and for backpackers, Jordan is a viable destination. The country is safe, the people are friendly, and prices are reasonable, although it is advisable to plan your routes and make reservations in advance. In terms of expenses, Jordan is a fairly inexpensive country if you travel wisely. The average monthly salary is around $700 to $800, and prices reflect that reality. Renting a one-bedroom apartment in Amman costs around $430 in the center, or about $300 on the outskirts. Dinner for two in a mid-range restaurant costs around $30, and a night in a comfortable, well-located hotel costs between $80 and $110. In general, a person can live in Jordan on around $700 a month if they adopt a local lifestyle. Visiting Petra is an unmissable experience. Admission costs around $70, although it is included with the Jordan Pass. It is recommended to spend at least 2 days enjoying the treasury, the monastery, and the hidden trails. There are also guided tours that include transportation, a guide, and admission from Amman, with prices ranging from $100 to $150 per person, depending on the duration and services. Another unmissable destination is the Dead Sea, the lowest point on the planet. Floating in its dense, salty waters is a magical experience. Hotels in the area offer day passes with access to their private beaches and pools, with prices ranging from $30 to $65 per person, depending on the hotel category. There are also simpler local options on the shores of the lake for around $20. As you have seen, Jordan is a safe, hospitable, and surprisingly accessible country. You can explore it on your own or on organized tours, sleep under the stars in Wadi Rum, float in the Dead Sea, or lose yourself among the pink stones of Petra. It is a destination where tradition and modernity go hand in hand, and where every visitor finds not only history and landscapes, but also one of the most genuine hospitality on the planet. At Uncensored World, we hope that this tour of fascinating Jordan has been as exciting for you as it has been for us. With that in mind, and considering the effort that goes into making these videos, we would love for you to leave us a like and your comments. It's the best way you can help us continue to bring you the best content every week. If you enjoyed this video and are not yet subscribed, don't wait any longer and do so now by activating the bell so you don't miss the fascinating videos we make every week. Videos like this one that you can enjoy now to discover one of the most fascinating corners of the planet. Don't miss out and discover the wonders this place has to offer.